Hey friends, welcome to this session. In this session, we will see what is a kind cluster and then we will create a kind cluster. So, we all know that we use managed Kubernetes like in AWS we have EKS, Elastic Kubernetes Services. In Azure we have AKS. But if someone wants to do some local development on Kubernetes, how does he do that? So there he can use a Kubernetes cluster in by using kind. So kind is a tool. So let me go and see what is a kind cluster. If I search for this, so it says that kind is a tool for running local Kubernetes cluster using Docker containers. So main thing to understand here is that in as a underlying technology it is using Docker containers. So the first thing we need is Docker to be installed, right? So I have already installed Docker as well as I have installed kind. So if I do kind, so the kind CLI comes up, right? But I'll show you from where we can install kind. If we go here, there's a quick start. Based on how you want to install it via package manager, via release binaries, we can go around it. So for Mac OS, these are the commands. For Windows, if you want to install in Linux with binaries, here are the commands. For convenience, I will put these commands in the description box. So as I told you that I have already installed this, so we don't have to go around installing it to keep the session simple. And let's now create a first Kubernetes cluster. So if I do kind get clusters, it says that no kind cluster found, right? Because we have not created one. Before I create a cluster, I will open a new terminal and I will show you there is a folder .q folder in your root. If you do a ls, you will see there is a config file. So this config file has all the config of all the clusters and contexts that are created till now. Okay, if I do a cat on this config, so for simplicity I will copy this and I will open it in a VS Code. Here we go. I'll minimize these here. So as we can see that it shows that I have three clusters running already. So I have also used Minikube, so we can see that there's a cluster for Minikube and Jenkins. So why I showed you this is because once we create a new cluster, we will again do a cat on config file and see what the difference is. Okay, so let's go ahead. I'll clear this tab, this too, sorry. So to create the cluster, the command is kind create clusters and then the name. So before that I will show you the flags. So here it says that, I'm sorry, just a dash up. What happened? Okay, I'm sorry, I have put clusters. It should be like this here. So it says that the name, we have to provide an input with name parameter, and name would be the cluster name that we want to create. So if I go here, I'll put name and I will give name dev. So now it has started creating the dev cluster. So usually it takes like a minute or so, but meanwhile let me go to the other tab and I will do a docker ps. So here we can see that it has created a node. So it is a single node cluster, so only one node can be seen, but if we want we can create multiple clusters. So at that time we can see multiple entries over here. Okay, let's go back. So it has pulled the image it has created the node, it is writing the configuration, and now it is creating the control plane. It will just take like 30 to 40 seconds more and we'll be ready with our first cluster. So in this session, to keep it simple, we will only go around creating a cluster and deleting it, but in coming further sessions we will see how we can use kind clusters and in more depth and try to build kind of a simple application on it. And there we go. If I do kind get clusters, so I see that we have that div cluster created. Now we will again go here, do a ls and a cat on config. I will again copy this config file and let me open another tab and I'll copy this. Here we go. I'll minimize this. Okay. So now we see that in the previous file we had 3 clusters and now we have 4. If I expand the last cluster, this is my new cluster which I just created. So it has all the details. If we want any detail about this cluster, we have it. Then we also have context which will go in depth in our coming sessions. So for this session that was it. Now we will go and delete this cluster. So for deleting this cluster we use kind delete clusters and the name of the cluster, and it says that kind cluster has been deleted. I can see here the container that it had spun has gone. So that's all for this session. I'll see you in next session. Thank you. Bye.